Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends channel. I am your host, the Ghost of Texas Football. I'm joined here by SEC Unfiltered's own Dave Shumate. Dave, welcome back to the channel. How you doing, sir?
Ghost, appreciate you bringing me back on, man. I never thought you'd ask me again after I told you I had Texas as their one loss this year to Oklahoma. So I'm glad that didn't personally affect our relationship, and I'm glad you're bringing me back on, man. How's everything going with you?
It's going good, man. Going good. Absolutely fun-filled Saturday at college football. I feel like, got you here for a half hour or so we'll do a quick little recap of a few games. But of course, man, you're always welcome back. We'll have you back on plenty of times. First and foremost, you saw the countdown banner. A lot of Surrender Cobras there at the end of a tough battle in Columbia, South Carolina. As you watch that game unfold from start to finish, what were kind of your overall impressions? Talk to me a little bit about the Lenora Sellers injury. When that was happening, did you expect LSU to take control of that game immediately? To me, it kind of felt like South Carolina was just hanging on for dear life. Still had a few things go their way, but I know if you ask a few of them, they might say otherwise as far as having things go their way. So, talk to me a little about the Gamecocks and the Tigers, Dave.
Yeah, we did our Chris Phillips, myself, and Cole Thompson did our Sunday Fun Day reaction we do at 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday mornings. And we were talking about this, and the majority of the South Carolina fans want to talk about the calls, the referee calls, the bringing back both pick sixes. And, I mean, coincidentally enough, the kid who probably played the best for South Carolina all day, Kyle Kennard, the Georgia Tech transfer, who was impactful, he also was impactful in a negative way, too. Those two penalties, the horse collar, it brought back the first pick six was him, and then the blind side was him as well. So as much as he helped, he ended up hurting. I don't really think that's the story. Yeah, it was impactful. Yeah, it had an impact. But unfortunately, it just is the rule, written by the rule. I'm sure when they turn that into Steve Shaw, who's over the SEC officials, they'll get a film review. When I was at A&M, for whatever reason, I was attached to those emails. So whatever we would send calls we didn't like to the SEC, they would send it right back in the middle of the week on Monday or Tuesday. And I would get it, and it's funny. It's just like it's Steve Shaw there just showing the clip, and he's kind of breaking it down where it is. I think he's going to probably tell them, like, by nature of the rule, how the rule is written, it's a blindside block. Now, should that be a rule if the quarterback's going to engage on the ball carrier when they change possession? Yeah, I mean, how bad would that be if teams are like, hey, man, don't touch the quarterback after an interception. Now you're going to get a blindside back. And that guy ends up making a play down the field, and it ends up kind of costing you. And you're sitting there, you're like, I mean, guys, we don't even talk about blocking the quarterback anymore.
Right.
And that's going to cost us a game. So it kind of goes both ways. But let's be honest, Ghost. And I hate using this term, but I'm about to use it. They didn't get spotted. South Carolina earned a 17-0 lead right after that. But if you told Shane Beamer, if you told Dow Loggins, if you told any of the Gamecock fans that were in Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday that they started off 17-0, they got a 17-0 lead over LSU. They're taking that. I think they win that football game. That's where you lost it. You lost it because you were 3 for 12 and you were 28% on third down. You also, I think, could say, and I said it this morning, I think if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, South Carolina probably wins that game.
Probably.
The third down, I think they had, a yard of total offense passing, I think. It was bad. But, again, I think it was they didn't trust Robbie Ashford. And Robbie Ashford probably has about 2 to 3 plays in him a day or in a game that he's got to go take advantage of and have. I think if Lenore – again, they were about to get a field goal to go up, before Lenore? They were getting right into Herrera's range. And he took that and it backed him up. He took that sack and it backed him up. Totally changed it. I think LSU won the middle 8 of this game, took the momentum. When I say middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. That's usually where a lot of games are won. LSU went and cut it to 8 points, and they got the ball to open the second half. Now, granted, that first drive of the second half, they go down and get stopped on the goal line, 4th and 1, but it set up the field position. I like the 4th and 1. They didn't get it. I probably would have called a better second down call, but Again, you turn the ball, you give the ball to South Carolina on their own one with Robbie Ashford. They weren't going to go try to do anything. They were just going to try to not turn the football over and punt it back for you and try to change field position. I just think overall the lack of passing vertically down the field once Lenore Sellers went out, and even to an extent when he was in it, and third down conversions on offense, I think ultimately cost him. It was a sloppy game across the board. I feel like, but it was fun. It's why we love college football. Just overcoming adversity for both teams. I mean, we saw LSU who needed that win more than anyone. I mean, what would they be saying on the T-Bob Bear and Matt Moscano Whiskey and Wine after that show, or the Blake Ruffino Are You Serious show in the state of Louisiana? If they would have started off 1-2, 0-1 in Brian Kelly's year 3, where he openly states, "Judge me on year 3 because it's Cincinnati. That's when I took the next step." And when I was in we played for the national championship in 2012. My third year is usually good for Brian Kelly. So far, been a little hit or miss. I mean, also too, I think LSU's defense is one of those things. It's improved. God, they can't fit gaps to save their lives. They're that team who could have someone pinned up on their own one. They could bust a 99-yard run because they're that undisciplined across the board. I thought a little bit sloppy, but you know what? Brian Kelly, LSU, they're going to take that win because we had to have it. Maybe that changes the trajectory of their season. They have UCLA, South Alabama bye week coming up before they get that big showdown at home against Ole Miss. That's kind of the next game.
Yeah.
Feel that they're going to be real challenged in. But again, I think just LSU, they are what they are this year. I thought going in they were an 8-4, 9-3 team. Still feel that way. Didn't even change it after the USC game first weekend. I just think they're going to be a little. They are what they are. There's really no strength to that team outside of their 2 tackles that only gave up 2 sacks. Their first 2 sacks of the season yesterday. But South Carolina came in with 10 sacks, so they performed well. Outside of that, Garrett Nussmeier, you're going to ride the highs and lows with. He's turnover prone, but he can also make big plays. I think the defense is aggressive. It's better. It couldn't be any worse than last year with Matt House. But also, they're prone to giving up explosive plays. So, again, you had to have it for LSU. It's one of those games for South Carolina, though, you could be looking back on. I see a lot of people already think, man, maybe Carolina can get to 6 to 7 wins. I still think Carolina's in that 5-win range, to be completely honest with you. I could see them looking back on this game and being like, dang, that could have been the difference between our 6th and 7th win there at the end of the year. That's a game, I mean, as you know, Gus, you're up 17-0 at home, man. Potentials to win this game. Both teams left a lot of meat on the bone. LSU gets it done, and I think LSU was the team that needed it the most. South Carolina, it was a good opportunity. At College game day there, could have springboarded it. LSU had to have it, though. Had to have that game. They got it done. It seemed very familiar to LSU's game versus Missouri last year, where they weren't winning the majority of that game, but they ended up pulling it out.
No, well said. I mean, you can't blow a 17-0 lead at home in the SEC if you have an expected win total of 5. Like, you got to find a way for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks to bring that one home. I was really disappointed at the very end of the game and them not allowing Robbie Ashford or one more attempt there. I mean, I want to say you had like 14 or 15 seconds. 5 to 7 yards could have ultimately been the difference there. That ball had just enough hook on it. Give it another 7 or 8 yards, and that ball might slide through.
And I saw Beamer came out and they asked him that question. Would you ever asked him that question from the press? Great question, by the way. And he said, you could tell he said it without saying it because I don't think he wanted to totally just bash Robbie Ashford because they're probably going to need him next week against Akron. I don't think Lenore's going to play. But he essentially said it without saying it, paraphrasing here, that like, hey, I just didn't want to snap the ball and us lose some more yardage or we turn it over. This was in our kicker's range. I know it was a 49-yarder. 49-yarder is not guaranteed for college kids. I see what Shane's saying, but also it's like, I mean, dude, you wasted like 15, 20 seconds, man. I mean, you could have just rolled Robbie out, thrown it to the sideline and just Robbie, this throw's not going to the inside, brother. If you miss outside. That's all I care about, man. We're going to try to get you 7, 8 more yards to the kicker. But, Robbie, you got to miss outside. And I think that's fair, and he probably would have settled it in the first row or 2 of the stands. But I'm with you. He's a little very, very conservative. And maybe if you're a 39-yarder, I get that. Like, hey, let's just don't back us up to a 45. 49 for any college kicker is not guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's inside of his range – when you add the pressure of the moment, I mean, like, just get me as close as I can there.
He missed both of them, Ghost. Remember, he missed the practice one that Brian Kelly and them called a timeout. And then
pushed it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pushed it right, and then he hooked the other one left.
That's a tough scene, man. I mean, just for college football and loving the atmosphere and environment, I kind of wanted South Carolina to pull that one out. it just the run fits were so bad for LSU in that first quarter. Even into the pursuit angles, everything was so yuck. I didn't see any improvement from last year. A few different bodies. It's still a mess. I'll agree with you in saying that if Lenore stays in the game, I think South Carolina wins that one. But at the same time, once LSU got settled in, they handled the pass rush pretty dang well and moved the football at will. They're a fun offense to watch, man. I like watching us, and I think that same thing. 8-4, 9-3 would be a pretty good season with that defense, in my opinion. Obviously, when you've already lost a game, I'm sure that a lot of Tiger fans might take that when you look at that schedule. But all right, let's get off that one for a little bit.
That's real fast. Does your opinion change on those two teams at all after that? Like expectations?
No, not really, man. I think South Carolina very fortunate. Kentucky was an absolute mess in that game. They weren't expected to beat LSU coming into the season. I agree with you. 5-6 wins if they make a bowl game, that's going to be huge. And yeah, they will look back on this game potentially and just be like, wow, that was a huge shot. Curious to see. I know they don't Akron next week. Just to see how they get up emotionally after that. Because
that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, man. That's pour a lot of emotion. That's the longest game I think I've ever watched in my life, including the 7 overtime game you were a part of. But yeah, no, fun football game. Not the cleanest played. Definitely entertaining. But let's go back down to stay in the SEC. The nightcap, Georgia, Kentucky. Obviously, another game that was sloppy at times, unless you love fun old clean hard defense. And what were your thoughts as you watched Georgia struggle with Kentucky, who obviously looked terrible last week in at home versus South Carolina?
Yeah, this game traditionally with Georgia in Kentucky, since Kirby's been there since 2016. I don't know if it's because him and Stoops are buddies or whatnot. It's almost usually a game, and it's usually later in the year. It's in November. This year it's earlier. It's usually a very low-scoring kind of let's get through it fast game. I remember back in 2019 when Jake Fromm was there, I think it was 0-0 going into the fourth. It was just a very low. That was when Georgia was limited explosive. Remember for a little bit with Kirby, they couldn't generate explosive plays to save their life.
Right.
But this felt a little different. This wasn't just Kentucky hung in there. Georgia pulled away for a 15-point win at the end. Kentucky was just getting into field goal range away, and they have a good kicker from winning that football game. Dominated time of possession. I think Kentucky isn't as bad as they showed against South Carolina. Not as good as they showed against Georgia. But to be fair, the offense wasn't even that great yesterday. It really wasn't. And Georgia had a lot of guys beat up. Michael Williams, they held out. Warren Brinson was held out. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins went out a little bit. And he's been their most disruptive defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's banged up a little bit. Tate Ratledge went out. I think he's going to be out. The offensive lineman went out for a little bit. Georgia had a very physical fall camp. I still think they're trying to get healthy a little bit. Again, I think this is a game Kirby would probably tell you way too close to comfort because you could have easily made a case we could have lost that game. This, like I mentioned, this wasn't just we were up 8 going into the fourth and we won by 15. It was he was never in doubt. It was just a little closer. This game could have went anyway.
Absolutely.
But I think Kirby has a lot to improve on going into their bye week. But this game specifically, I think Kentucky's what they are offensively for the year. Now, I think Brock Vanderger's they are what he is. He's going to be a little limited. I thought the offensive line played better than they did against South Carolina. Granted, you can't play any worse than 5 sacks and 11 TFLs. It can't get much worse than that. But they did play better. I think the receivers are a little underrated with Barry and Brown Danke. They just don't have anybody who can get them the football. So
that's a problem
at that point. Defense, I didn't think Kentucky's defense was really playing that bad against South Carolina. It got away from them because once South Carolina went up 2 to 3 scores, I think Kentucky's defense, after a few busts, just kind of quit. But you could tell they had that energy. Deion Walker's a beast on the inside. Derek Jackson, former Georgia backer, who was a starter for him at inside linebacker last year. Jamon Dumas-Johnson was out there. They were beating Georgia up on those. Georgia looked, for a lack of a better term, they looked soft yesterday. And you use it. They usually don't, even in losses, you usually don't say that. They look soft. They look like they did not have that chip on their shoulder. But if there's anybody that's really happy about this when they head into their bye week to go get healthy, it's Kirby Smart because he has a ton to go show his team before they head to Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. A game they were already going to be ready for. But again, this is going to lock them in, bring them in more focused. And there's no better way to go teach a lesson on how you can get better. You'd rather do that coming off an ugly win than a pretty loss like Kentucky's going to have. Now, I think you may have tweeted this. Somebody else did, but I thought the same thing. Why did Stoops punt? at the end of that game.
Now I was going to ask you that as well. I think he ends up only with around a 32, 33 yard net after the punt. I think down to around the 14 or 15. Just looking at it from a little over 3 minutes left.
Yeah,
I'm going for it there 10 out of 10 times.
Because it was 4th and 8, right?
4th and 8, right on or around midfield.
Yeah, it was 4th and 8, I think.
Yeah, definitely 4th and 8. I called plays for a little bit at the high school level. I'm ripping that 10 out of 10 times. I'm absolutely pulling the string there. But my thinking is they're built to run the football, and you're talking about having to find a way to stop Georgia in that play action plus their obvious run game for 3 straight downs with everything on the line. And you played good defense, but you're talking about a better caliber athlete on the other side. I'm taking my shot while I have the rock. I'm going to be aggressive. And if we don't get it and things are looking bleak, hey, let them bust one. And if they're smart enough to take a knee or to fall down past the first down sticks and, essentially in the game, but I'm going for it there. And if not, I'm not saying I'm conceding a touchdown, but if it's 3rd and 2 or 2nd and 4 and they, break a tackle at the line of scrimmage, I'm like, hey, let them go ahead and score. And I know kids are, and teams are smart now and they're going down and ending that game, but that's just in the very back of my mind. Hey, maybe they take the bait and essentially we get the ball back a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. And now we're still down 8, 1 possession. That would be my full logic. I just, which probably means nothing on the end if he goes down, but I have to go for it. There's just no way. I know second guessing is hindsight is 20/20, obviously when they punt the ball and don't see it again. But what about you there? You taking your shot against the number 1 team in the country at home, coming off the loss to South Carolina?
Matters, man. You're a 24-point underdog at home. You just probably played one of the worst games of your tenure, going back to 2013, Stoops' first year.
Yep.
The week before against South Carolina. Dude, I know it's 4th and 8, but it's not 4th and 15. If it was 4th and 12, 4th and 15, it's like, Brock Vanderger at times looks like he can barely throw a 15-yard pass the way he's played so far this year. So I get that you would punt, but 4th and 8, you got to have your best 3rd and 8, 4th and 8 play call because I understand someone asked Stoops this question and he said, well, our defense just got a 3 and out and I felt like it was dominating the half right before that possession. So I thought we'd just try to pin them back and try to see if we can. But you were forcing your defense to get another 3 and out. Like it had to be because obviously they stopped them without scoring any points or running out. But when Kentucky got the ball back, it was like 30 seconds and no timeouts.
Oh, that's true. They did see it again. Okay.
Yeah, they saw it again. But I'm with you. I think if I'm in the SEC championship game and like a playoff burst on the line, and I'm Alabama in that situation against Kentucky, against Georgia, hypothetically, yeah, I may punt and just get the ball back. But Kentucky has nothing to lose, dude. If I was a Kentucky fan, that would bother me a little bit. Like, dude, I understand it's not like we got Tim Couch or Andre Woodson back here at quarterback for us back here in Kentucky, but dude, we don't have a 4th and 8. Bush Hamden, the OC, doesn't have a 4th and 8 that he really likes that we maybe haven't shown this year, or the best play we've repped this week. Come on, man. It ain't, again, 4th and 12, 4th and 15, different conversation.
Completely
4th and 8, very gettable. You get it, dude, you're right on the cusp of that kid's field goal range, man. The kid, I forget his name. The kid from Kentucky could drill 50-plus field goals. Maybe he misses it, but who knows? I think you just got to give your team a chance in that situation if you're Kentucky, because context matters. Context matters. I thought you had nothing to lose. You were playing with house money at that point.
Fully agree. Context is everything there, especially coming off that defeat to South Carolina and an embarrassment. Honestly, on the program, they played so bad. Referencing that defense a little bit, they played pretty dang well, obviously. I don't think they played that bad against South Carolina either. But when your offense
wore down and kind of quit, I think when they realized the offense wasn't going to score.
Exactly that. And I'm not saying that's right or okay. It's just we see it in college football. Eventually,
it's reality. Yeah,
exactly. And so tired of being on the field and you lose a little bit of the fight and belief in that offense, and then all of a sudden, you're struggling yourselves. But a wild couple of games right there. Fun football to watch. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to talk a little about this a huge one going on this coming Saturday. Oklahoma's got their inaugural SEC opener. How are you feeling about Tennessee and Oklahoma, and are you guys going to be up there?
We're actually going to the Auburn-Arkansas game. Or
awesome.
Arkansas-Auburn game.
Okay, love it.
That's where we go. So, yeah, CP was telling Chris, he's like, you wouldn't realize how hard it is to get to Norman. Oklahoma's like, yeah, you got to fly into Oklahoma City and then drive over to Norman. But yeah, I mean, so we just went. So we're going to go to Arkansas. That's about an hour from me. Auburn is. I'm right on the Georgia-Alabama line, so it's not too far. No, so we'll be making the trip over there.
Good. That'll be a good time. Well, what are your early thoughts on Tennessee and?
Do you think that line would be? Do you think that line would be bigger when it opened up in this game?
I mean, honestly, I thought it was right about what I expected.
I did too.
Or are you talking about the 3.5 or what it got bet up to?
No. To Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma. It's at 7, I think.
7, yeah. I'd say I
saw
some
people saying they thought it'd be like 12.5. It's like, hey, the first true road game for Nico and Oklahoma's first SEC on the road against a pretty veteran defense. That line ain't going to be 12. People be loading up on Oklahoma if they're getting double-digit points at home. Now, when it opened up at 6.5, I could see a lot of people loading up on Tennessee at the same point too, thinking how this is. But I think this is going to come down to I haven't looked at the line, but I'd be a little enticed to go maybe take Oklahoma first half because I do think first let's focus on Oklahoma's defense versus the Tennessee offense. Tennessee, I think in the SEC, you tell me if I'm wrong here. Tell me if I'm missing somebody. Texas, can't add Georgia in there anymore. Ole Miss and probably Tennessee are the 3 teams that look like they haven't really been challenged at all. And that's a compliment to Texas because I think Michigan's going to end up being probably an 8, probably most likely an 8-9 win team.
I've got them 8 and 4.
Ole Miss hadn't played anybody, but they've handled business. Like they just dismantled everybody they played. So they're taking care of business, just playing who's in front of them on their schedule. And Tennessee took care of business against NC State, obviously against Kent State last night, UT Chattanooga to open up the season. So, but what do we know about Tennessee? Because I mean, we saw NC State struggle yesterday. Like they've struggled. They've struggled in all 3 games. So how good's NC State? I said once Tennessee got up double digits, 2 scores against NC State, it was over because Grayson McCall can't come back, stretch the field. This one to me, we still haven't seen Nico play a very good game overall. Yeah, he made some good throws against UT Chattanooga. There's no doubt that would have been completed against Georgia, Alabama, the way he was dropping some of those balls into the breadbasket. But at night in Norman at Memorial Stadium, the toughest environment this kid would have ever made a start in, I don't see it just being a clean cusp game right off the bat. Add in, I'm going to love to watch the chess match of Josh Heupel versus Zach Alley and Brent Venables' defense. Because, again, Oklahoma, I think has – Texas fans may not like this, but I think they had probably the least amount of question marks on defense. I'm not saying it's the most talented defense, but it's a lot of guys that have played together. They don't really have a major hole on defense. I think they're going to throw a lot at Nico. That's why I need to go look. I mean, if the line's 7 right now, I'm sure Oklahoma for the half's 3.5. I don't think that's a terrible bet right there. I could see this game being – I think this game's going to be closer for a half just because I just think the environment's going to be too much. Josh Heupel coming back seems to be some bad blood. Last quarterback to win them a national championship at Oklahoma. I just think Oklahoma is going to throw the kitchen sink at him from stuff he's never seen before that I think he's going to struggle in. You saw some interceptions he threw against NC State. I could see him having some early turnovers. On the other side, I think there's a big mismatch advantage here. I think Tennessee's front is as good as it's probably had since Philip Fulmer, going back to Fulmer's last year in 2008. I'm not saying 2008 season, but since he's been there, the Philip Fulmer, the best defensive front they've had. I mean, obviously you got James Pierce, Joshua Joseph on the edge, but you also got guys like Omari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, the Simmons kid out there. They're deep on the defensive front. And Oklahoma has just been on the struggle bus offensively on the offensive line. And then Jackson Arnold struggling. And you also got to factor in, I feel like they're really banged up at the receiver spot outside of Deion. So I don't know where they generate a bunch of offense. Unless that Tennessee secondary is worse than we thought. It really wasn't tested. I think it's improved. And it doesn't have to be great for Tennessee to make the playoffs because I think their front's going to be good. Their offense is going to come along. Schedule's beneficial. But if that secondary is worse than we think, Oklahoma gets some receivers back. Maybe they can go test it if they can protect. I don't know if they go mass protect or what. But I do think ultimately, I think Tennessee, them having that advantage on the front, adjustments at half, I think Tennessee's going to make a play or two where they maybe separate in the fourth quarter, win a game maybe by 10 or 13 points. And again, it's a conference opener on the road at Oklahoma, a tough place to play. I don't care if they win by 1 point. You take that if you're Josh Heupel in Tennessee and Nico EMI Lava's first true road start. So that's where I kind of think it is. I think it's going to be the chess match between Allie and Venables against Heupel. What are they throwing at Nico? I'm excited to see that. And then on the other side, how does Oklahoma kind of contain that Tennessee front that's really good against an offensive line that struggled against Temple, Tulane at times? The Patrick Jenkins kid was in their backfield a lot yesterday. And then even the Houston game, they struggled up front. So Oklahoma hasn't really done it yet against anybody, and this could be arguably the best defensive front they see all year. So I don't know. It being in Norman definitely helps. I like Oklahoma in the first half. I think Tennessee ultimately wins the football game, though.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When you look at the 4 units that are going to be on the field, it's quite clear that 1, 2, and 3 are going to be a grouping of, Oklahoma's defense, Tennessee's offense and defense, and then a substantial drop off when you talk about the OU offense. It's a game to me is where if Nico doesn't turn the football over, it's going to really, really, really hurt, Oklahoma's chances of winning. They're going to have to turn him over, 2+ times, and then probably play really clean football of their own. Win the turnover battle by 2 or 3 to have a prayer. Just because I don't think there's enough in that offense, man. There's not enough juice yet. They're banged up. Supposed to get Nick Anderson back this week. I want to say they're pretty confident, which would be huge. But at the same time, he doesn't play offensive line, and Tennessee's showing up with a front 7 that's going to be out for blood. I guarantee you Josh Heupel obviously has had this one circled for a very long time. Many people, including myself, feel that Bob Stoops made Josh Heupel a fall guy instead of firing his brother Mike Stoops back in the day when he let Heupel and Norvell go. Oklahoma's offense really wasn't an issue, and we've seen what Heupel has done and can do. And from the way that you kind of played out, I'm sure that Heupel might have similar opinions and feelings on the matter.
Yeah, I don't think he's donating as an alum to Oklahoma right now.
Probably not. And so as soon as those SEC schedules dropped, last fall or was it spring? Whenever they dropped, I remember being happy as a clam watching that and seeing our logos with all you guys. But I'm sure that one to him to put a big smile on his face, knowing that hey, he has a chance to go in there and kind of ruin their big SEC opening party. And so definitely like Tennessee in that one. I think it'd be really, really hard.
It's close,
What's up?
You think it's close?
I like what you said. Close for a while. It's going to be an absolute ruckus environment. The biggest home game that Oklahoma has had in a very, very long time. They've had Ohio State at home. They've had a couple of big non-conference opponents at home, but you're talking about a new conference, new era. Josh Heupel coming to town, the Vols being a top 10 program. There's a lot on the line for the Sooners right here. It's a huge opportunity for them to kind of shut a lot of people up. But ultimately, I do believe they come up short in their attempts. I mean, Tennessee is pretty dang good, man. That's just call it how it is. They win the turnover battle, or Tennessee plays even in the turnover battle. Then I have Tennessee by 2 touchdowns if they can play even. But the thing is, also, I agree with you, man. Nico didn't have to do anything crazy to beat North Carolina State. He turned the ball over even.
Yeah, I mean, the storyline of that game was their defense.
Exactly. And North Carolina State obviously has looked pretty dang terrible all 3 weeks. I thought they'd look a lot better, I'm going to be honest. But, so Nico might be called to do a little bit more in this game because I don't think that Brent Venables is going to let Tennessee, on the other hand, just run the football and just be able to play fake and let Nico take shots down the field or even use his legs, I think they'll do their best to make Oklahoma one-dimensional or Tennessee one-dimensional, and they'll really try to challenge Nico in the passing game and make him beat them. Fresh, inexperienced quarterback on the road, first true road start, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, that's what I would do. So, and Venables knows a lot more about defense than I do. So, I do have Tennessee ultimately winning. I agree with you there, Dave. But yeah, man, I overall, I'm probably more excited about that game than any other game in the slate. I'll definitely be watching. I'll probably have it pulled up on my phone at DKR. Taking my son to his first game next weekend.
So you're taking your son to the first game this year against ULM on Saturday?
It's his first game ever at DKR.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, very excited for that. And we'll practice our hate watching.
Going to an SEC game this year, Ghost? Like
oh yeah, the only one I think I'll miss is Kentucky. I'll be at Mississippi State, Georgia. Yeah, Mississippi State, Georgia.
You going to College Station?
Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah, I'm locked into that one.
How could you miss that one if you're an Aggie or a Longhorn?
I lost a fantasy football wager, and I even have to attend midnight yell the night before the game. So I have to wear burnt orange. So if you don't see me at the game, you know that midnight yell went bad for a ghost. But Dave, as always, thank you. There you go. I appreciate you coming on, man. Everybody, you guys check out SEC Unfiltered. They're all over the place. They're putting in crazy work right now. 24/7. It's impressive stuff. Go give them all a chance. Mr. Cole Thompson, Dave Shumate, Chris Phillips are doing amazing work. Dave, thank you for joining me. It means a ton, brother. We'll talk again soon. Anything else you'd like to say before we get you out of here, sir?
No, I think I'm good, brother. I appreciate you bringing me on. I'll come on anytime, man. It's always great to catch up with you. Start getting us a little bit more into the new kids on the block with Texas and Oklahoma. Obviously, we'll jump on it anytime. We're also in Texas Sports Unfiltered as well from a Texas standpoint as well. But Ghost, I appreciate you bringing me on, brother.
Absolutely, sir. Well, guys, appreciate you all watching. Like and subscribe the video and channel, and we'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night.